جريت عبر يدي والماء بكى لغيابك، لكني بقيت أراك حشرة في دمي. قالوا الشباب لا يقدر أن يقبض على زمام نيويورك، لكن مستشفى بيلفيو ما هو سلة نفايات ينفي كل أوجاعك. ليل يتسلق الشر، ليل شرير صاعد إلى يا ضباب الجبل والجسد الميت مسافرا في كفن. For a while, one of Etel's greatest fears was that because she wrote in a foreign language, her work would not be considered part of Arabic literature. What I just read is from this book, خمس حواس لموت واحد. It was published in Beirut in 1973 with paintings by Simon Fattal. It is an Arabic version of 5 Senses for One Death, translated jointly by Etel Adnan and Yusuf Al-Khal. Here's the same excerpt in English. You moved through my hand, water cried for your absence, but you kept recurring as insects in my blood. Someone was telling youth cannot cope with New York, but Bellevue Hospital is no garbage can. Can it spit out your pain? Night climbing up on evil, evil night coming up on the mountain, clouds and the dead body sailing in a coffin. Of this poem, Etel said, it is a kind of funeral oration, something I wrote from deep down in my soul after the suicide of a friend. Yusuf Al-Khal saw it as a love poem and wanted to use the masculine form for my friend in the Arabic translation. I said no, it wasn't a man, but a woman, a young woman, and I wanted it to stay that way. Yusuf said that it was a literary convention. I said no, women have a right to their own feelings. And this is perhaps the first poem in Arabic literature written by one woman for another. It did not cause a sensation. On several occasions it was broadcast in Arabic, and many poets, most of them men, have admired it and taken it seriously. For me, it represents a sort of feminist declaration. Of course, it is also and mainly something else. For Etel, there was no belonging without freedom, and no freedom without belonging. Etel belonged to many worlds, human and non-human. Etel had many friends in many places. In the US, one of her friends was June Jordan. In a 1980s poem, Jordan says she is trying to understand French for the sake of Etel Adnan, who thought I would know, because she slipped her words under the feet of Lebanese children. And a couple of pages later, June Jordan writes, I was born a black woman, and now I am become a Palestinian. This is one of the major things Etel and June shared, an understanding of solidarity as joint struggle. It is impossible to speak of Etel Adnan without speaking of Palestine. It is her intimate knowledge of the Palestinian predicament that helped her understand the US as a settler colony, and that made her feel invested in black and native liberation. Etel's long poem, Spreading Clouds, is dedicated to June Jordan. It ends like this. My friend went to Nicaragua and learned a different kind of weather. She can't live away from a certain season, the season of her love. She knows the inexistence of Latin America. It is of Indian America that we spoke. 500 years of Spanish Inquisition did not crush the language of the wind We stay behind in our pitiful bedrooms. The football game is our Iliad, and the presidential jet our Odyssey. But there, where it is hot, so close to the equator that the sky starts to spin, there are people whose eyes never died, whose hearts bleed blood and passion. The Indians are coming. They have machetes for the tall grass that covers the face of the sun. These themes and many more are explored in Etel's Journey to Mount Tamalpais, a book that sits at the meeting point of her verbal and visual practices. It is a love poem to a mountain, her mountain, in the form of a prose essay. It is a meditation on painting and dreaming, on landscape and power, on indigeneity and conquest, on dry volcanoes and overflowing sentiments. First published in 1986, it was long out of print until a new edition came out just last month. I had the honor of writing an afterword for it, which I will read a few excerpts from. In Arabic, the word for journey is rihla. In classical Arabic culture, a rihla is both a journey and a literary genre. One traveled for knowledge. In order to learn, you must decenter yourself. A journey is a method of self-transformation. Sometimes geographic spots become spiritual concepts. Tamalpais is a shrine. Despite its physical proximity, it retains considerable aura. Journey to Mount Tamalpais narrates a stationary kind of incessant travel. We don't need to move. To perceive is to be the movement, not the object. Perception here is a form of listening that transfigures the relation between subject and object, that reaches into layers of history buried underground. Mount Tamalpais is more than a mountain. It is an interlocutor. It looks at us with tears coming down its slopes. It sends a wild smell of crushed herbs into the air. Etel refused the usual separations between realms of existence. She believed in the oneness of things, a unity of being, equally inspired from Islamic thought and Native American philosophies. Her poetry is a perpetual conversation with all living things. O my tree, my own, shall we transcend species and gender to exchange, once, pleasure and knowledge? The mountain reassures. Its there-ness is the core of the poet's being. Standing on Mount Tamalpais, I am in the rhythms of the world, she wrote. Around it, everything is spinning, dying, restless. Inside it, a silent volcano lies. Tamalpais is the eye of the storm of existence, forever scanning uncertain horizons. Its precarious permanence invites the possibility for an angel to come across, like George Jackson's voice making a breakthrough from his prison cell onto the airwaves, insisting that love and revolution are one. Quote, white is the color of terror in this century. The great white mushroom, the white and radiating clouds, the white on white painting by Malevich, and that whiteness, most fearful in the eyes of men. To perceive is to search for those other colors absent on earth that Alexis Leonov saw in outer space. Perception is a bulwark against loneliness, the loneliness of those who are blind to so many things. When I thought a bird was flying, it was the sound of water. I thought a stream was running, it was the wind. Tamalpais became a spaceship ready to take off. Tamalpais is my spaceship. In the 1960s, war and colonization had mapped and remapped the world to no end. Outer space appeared as a promise. But Etel's futurism is less a matter of technology than of imagination. High energies of the mind can take you further than the moon. The moon landing was never a true symbol of liberation anyway. The ability of some to launch into outer space requires that Earth remain a prison for those who cannot leave. San Quentin and other prisons literally haunt the text. Quote, "Did they forget that in the summer of 1969, the white man went to the moon and the red man to Alcatraz?" In its discontinuous narrative logic, Journey to Mount Tamalpais is an attempt at wakeful dreaming, at poetically making a world rather than simply describing it. Sometimes, while painting, something wild gets unleashed. What is art making if not the possibility of wildness? Not wilderness, which European civilization made up in order to conquer it, but wildness, which stands in defiance of all policing. The mountain is a survivor and a witness. It is alive with the spirits of the massacred. The book is studied with evocations of its forever changing yellows and greens. Do colors have the power to break the time barrier and carry us into outer spaces, not only those made of miles and distances, but those of the accumulated experiences of life since its beginning or unbeginning? Mount Tam's colors offer us a glimpse into a world where extractivism may be defeated, where there is room for promise and wonderment, where the future is not foreclosed. Through the long night of the species, we go on, somehow blindly, and we give a name to our need for a breakthrough. We call it the angel, or call it art, or call it the mountain. In a way, Etel was never not on a journey. The journey started even before her birth. Her parents came to Beirut as exiles from worlds that were no more. Etel was never not on a journey. What was new with Tamalpais was the journey to Mount Tamalpais. For the first time, she had a destination, an anchor. And this anchor was also painting, a conduit toward joy, an attempt to live in and through the power of color without ever owning it. We are understanding images to be our equals, having a life and a power of their own. We make them, but they are not ours, and they are not from us. An important and difficult thing I learned from Etel is her ethics of letting go, her refusal of possessions and possessiveness. Yesterday, I listened to a conversation she recorded last year. The interviewer asked what painting of hers she was most attached to. She answered, "The works are for the world. They are for others. It's like children. Eventually, they must leave the house." Etel is both the wisest and the most wondrously childlike person I have known. She has now left the house. I like to think of this moment the way she described it in this poem from 1985. Angels are carrying me into this ascension. In the early hours, we are drinking a cup of coffee in a bar built on the moon. I will bring the ink, the key, and the secret on a future page. Thank you.